Mayor de Blasio and Police Commissioner Dermot Shea are speaking at the NYPD Police Academy now. They're expected to discuss the rise in anti-Semitic hate crimes. Let's listen in.
Coming off all-time lows and are still at incredibly low levels, but any uptick is of concern. Hate crimes are also up, specifically driven by anti-Semitism, things such as swastikas and hate speech. To combat it, we have a fully staffed hate crimes task force under Inspector Mark Molinari. We have a new racially and ethnically motivated extremism unit under John Miller. And to address recent events, we have significantly bolstered our uniform presence in select areas of New York City. More than 150 police officers bolstered by auxiliary officers to make sure people are safe and feel safe as well. We also plan to incorporate hate crime stats into our CompStat reporting for the first time ever, because the best way to fight hate is by shining a light on it. All of this plays into the precision policing that keeps us focused on the true drivers of violence and disorder. And speaking to the effectiveness of neighborhood policing and our responsiveness in communities that feel under siege. I mentioned before the increase in murders and shootings. Fluctuations in occurrences are expected in our line of work, but this year's increases should certainly not be seen as a trend. We had a slight uptick in recorded murders that was driven by reclassified homicides, and we're still at historic low per capita, about 3.7 per 100,000. We continue to see a high percentage of crimes that are committed by gang members or have gang involvement, and we constantly work to identify who's involved and why they're involved. Together, we must make sure that the small percentage of people responsible for the majority of crime and violence are held accountable and that there are real consequences for their actions. Unfortunately, some people should be in jail. And think about that statement in 5 years, cutting arrests and incarceration 45% in this city. So we can say simultaneously both things. But let me be clear, the NYPD's youth-focused solution, however, aims to avoid that eventuality for young people. One piece of our new initiative focuses on addressing, preventing, and curbing youth violence. This month, we're establishing a monthly youth forum that I'll co-chair with Chief LaPetri that brings together members of our various district attorneys' offices, the Department of Probation, and many other stakeholders. For what purpose? To discuss best practices and fixes, especially as it relates to those youth-involved robberies. Collaborative ways to prevent youth violence. Our goal is to help young people steer clear of a first act of criminal behavior, or if they've already stumbled, to guide them back to the right path. In all of this, in everything that we're doing, we must never forget about the victims. Everything we do is geared toward reducing and preventing crime and to keeping people safe. And no one knows how to do it better, in my opinion, than the NYPD. And what we know is that reclaiming our neighborhoods requires the coordinated efforts of the entire police department, along with the full and willing partnership of all the people we serve. This is far more than just the NYPD. This is every city agency, every community-based organization, every elected official, really every resident. The same partners are the NYPD's critically important allies in countering the perpetual threat of terrorist attack in a city that remains the nation's principal target. And enhanced training, upgraded equipment, and cutting-edge technology, laws, in effect, tools, enabling the best cops in the nation to constantly improve on every front. It is our vow that we will not cede an inch in our mission to vigorously fight and prevent crime, while at the same time continuing to build trust with every resident in every neighborhood of New York City. The people who remain our greatest partners in ensuring the highest level of public safety for all. I'll leave you with this. 2020 promises to be a year of great opportunity, another chapter in our history that will see even more NYPD successes realized on behalf of all New Yorkers. Through crimes and arrests prevented, many lives saved, families kept intact, and quality of life vastly improved. And ours is a crime-fighting model, as I've said before, of policing that I would say is worthy of being replicated across the nation. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Commissioner. First of all, a very happy New Year to everyone, and my congratulations to you, Commissioner, to all the leadership of the NYPD up here. for all you've achieved in 2019, and of course to the men and women of the NYPD for their extraordinary efforts. I want to welcome as well to this afternoon Liz Glazer, Director of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, and Deborah Lauder, the Executive Director of the Office for the Prevention of Hate Crimes, and thank both of them and their teams for the work they are doing. I want to pick up where the Commissioner left off, and I think the final statements you heard from him are really, really crucial to reflect on. First of all, thank you, Commissioner, for your focus on young people. We're going to be talking a lot about that in the months ahead. But this, to me, is a central point in how the NYPD will take us to the next step of building a safer city. We're already the safest big city in America. We intend to go farther in 2020, and that focus on youth, I think, is going to be a central part of the strategy that we need. But the fact is, this commissioner is talking about how we prevent crime, how we think about all the crimes that do not have to happen and can be stopped, and how we do that, in fact, with fewer arrests and fewer people in jail simultaneously. That's an extraordinary agenda, and it's an agenda that in 2019 we proved actually works. We've got issues to deal with, there's no question, and I'll address that in a moment as well. There's no one up here who belittles even small upticks in areas of real concern. But the central question before us, the thing New Yorkers want to know is, are the basic strategies working? And I can certainly say after 6 years, I'm convinced that precision policing and neighborhood policing together is the winning strategy. The fact that 2019 represents a year where we had, once again, a decrease in the overall number of crimes, the fact that we have proven that these strategies continue to drive down crimes, continue to achieve things that were considered in many ways impossible before, this is the right direction. But we need to intensify it, and we need to add that focus on young people to go even farther. The basic facts: overall crime at a record low, while at the same time 180,000 fewer arrests last year compared to 6 years ago, and the lowest number we've seen of New Yorkers behind bars addressing the issue of mass incarceration. All of these things happen simultaneously. Neighborhood policing, I always remind people, in the scheme of things, has only just begun. And I think you're going to see in the year 2020 a deepening of these strategies and even closer coordination between neighborhood residents and the NYPD, and more information flowing to NYPD officers who need that information to keep everyone safe. The challenges are real. That uptick in murders is something we take very seriously, as well as the uptick we've seen in felony assault and robbery. I take it seriously. I know everyone up here does, and we believe we have strategies to fight that back. The important thing to remember about the NYPD, and I think this is a statement about the last 6 years, but also a statement about the last quarter century, this department's only moved in one direction, forward. We have to understand that. There'll be always tough days along the way. But in the life of this city, the history of this city, the fact that for a quarter century we have seen sustained progress should give us all heart that this is an organization that knows how to make the right adjustments, knows how to create the strategies that will overcome any obstacle. So I'm convinced that we will drive back these problems and we will overcome them. The NYPD has, I think, shown extraordinary strategic agility. And under Commissioner Shea, I believe that ability will only grow. So as we look ahead to 2020, here's my simple summation. I expect us to get safer. The challenges are real, and it will take an immense amount of hard work and creativity. We have to use every tool we have. But the outcome I expect and the outcome that I believe we will achieve is to make the city safer still and to help people feel safer. So we are looking forward to this year and to taking everything that has been learned and everything that's been achieved and building upon it. Let me say a few quick words in Spanish. En el año pasado, continuamos a bajar el crimen a un nuevo récord. Todavía hay dificultades, pero estoy seguro de que este departamento los enfrentará. Este año vamos a hacer la ciudad más grande, aún más segura. And with that, happy to turn to and congratulate, this is his first Crime Stats press conference in his new capacity, our new Chief of Crime Control Strategies, Mike LePetri.
Thank you, Mayor de Blasio, Police Commissioner Shea. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd also like to extend a great job that the NYPD officers do every day to go out there and keep this city safe. As the Commissioner stated, I am Chief Mike LePetri, the Chief of Crime Control Strategies, and I'm here to discuss the end-of-the-year statistics. However, statistics are not just numbers, they are people, victims. Each number is a life, a family, a generation that is affected by violence. Behind each statistic is a story that the numbers don't portray. During my brief, I intend to provide a framework so that the victims don't get lost in the numbers that I will be sharing with you. As the Commissioner stated, we made good strides in 2019. New York City saw an overall reduction in the 7 major index crime categories. Crime decreased by 872 victims, or 0.9%. We plan to continue this trajectory until every person who resides, visits, or works in New York City is safe. In addition, the last 4 months of 2019 have seen record lows in shootings, particularly the month of December. This was the 4th consecutive month this year that we beat last year's lows, and 3 of the 4 months are historic lows. This is the safest December of the CompStat era, and the 4th quarter of 2019 is the safest era. Murder also follows the December trend in being the lowest in the CompStat era with 13. Although we have seen some historic lows in 2019, we also have concerns and do see some upticks that we need to alleviate. Murder, robbery, felony assault victims, and shooting incidents did increase slightly in 2019. Specifically, the borough of Manhattan as a whole saw an increase in all 4 of these categories in both patrol boroughs, Manhattan South and Manhattan North. We are working with our partners in the Southern District, New York County District Attorney's Office, Corporation Counsel, and other law enforcement partners such as probation and parole and the community to make sure that the drivers of these violent acts are held accountable and dealt with appropriately. The NYPD and others need to continue to address ways to make sure that public safety will not be compromised due to a recent change in our laws. Discretion is such a large part of law enforcement, but our judges have been stripped of their discretion when assigning cash bail to defendants for all misdemeanors and certain felonies. The NYPD is laser focused on precision policing, community trust, and engagement. Currently, we do see a spike in hate crimes, which have no place in our city and will not be tolerated. The spike in hate crimes is driven by anti-Semitic motivation. Precisely the crimes that are spiking with that motivation are aggravated harassment and criminal mischief. 72% of those crimes involve swastikas or graffiti. Regardless of the severity of the hate crime, our commitment to eradicating these despicable crimes against the people of this city is unparalleled. We are and will continue to be resolute in doing all that we can to prevent such crimes, or in the event they occur, conduct the most thorough investigations so they can be prosecuted to the full extent. Commissioner Shea touched on youth-related robberies. We're seeing an increase in the city, especially in Manhattan. We're seeing a large increase in youth-related perpetrators and youth-related victims. Robbery victims under the age of 20, so teenage robbery victims have increased almost 43% since June. Teenage robbery victims represent 19% of all the robbery victims across the city. 14 and 15-year-old victims saw an increase of 250. And a lot of those kids were either coming or going to school. The best preventative method for a safer city and community is to start building a strong foundation with our youth. We have begun to address youth who not only already have been arrested, but have a potential to be involved in the criminal justice system. We need to engage our youth before a serious crime is committed or any justice involvement occurs. We have recently met with all our law enforcement partners, not only to develop a preventative practice, but to also see how other agencies can contribute to our vision moving forward. Beginning in February of 2020, the NYPD will be hosting a monthly youth forum with other law enforcement agencies to discuss and explore best practices to help at-risk youth and prevent violent crimes committed by youth. The important feature of this youth forum is that it will be data-driven, a two-pronged initiative. There will be an element that focuses on preventative measures with at-risk youth that are in danger of becoming involved in the criminal justice system. This portion will not only include law enforcement partners, but also agencies like Administration of Children's Services, Department of Education, and community partners. The intent is to connect at-risk youth to services that are targeted to their specific needs. The other component will address those youths that have committed serious crime. Law enforcement partners will meet to discuss the youth involved in serious crimes and what can be done to intervene and redirect the behavior. Various law enforcement partners will work together to combat youth violence. As I've stated, this initiative will begin in February, and more information will be shared with the public as it continues to take shape. I'd like now to get more specific and begin to go through some of the upticks in 2019 that we saw. So we did see an increase in robberies of 3.1%. That was driven by the borough of, the borough of Manhattan and the borough of Bronx drove those robbery numbers with an increase of approximately 500 victims. When we do an analysis of those robberies, it's being driven by street robberies committed by youths on other youths targeting electronic devices. We've also seen an increase in multiple perpetrator robberies, so 2 or more robbing a single victim. Felony assaults saw a 1.4% increase this year. Some of the upticks that we saw within the felony assault category was domestic violence felonies. Victims did rise, and that was motivated by strangulation. Also, we did see an uptick on assaults on police officers and also the elderly. Murder. Murder saw an increase of 23 victims, or 7.8%. The police commissioner touched on it. We did have a little larger number of reclassifications than we normally have, but every year reclassifications is part of the data. It's a little complicated. But the bottom line is we are an extremely safe city, 3.7 per 100,000. It's not lost. We will continue relentlessly following up on violence in the city. Shootings. Did have an increase of shootings. I did state before that the second part of the year, we started really driving that number down. I think around Labor Day, we were at a high shooting number of 38. We ended the year with an increase of 22 shooting incidents. But as I stated before, the lowest quarter ever for shooting incidents in the city of New York. As far as upticks that we saw in Manhattan North, in Central and East Harlem, we specifically saw an uptick, and we've drilled down on it between the areas of 110 to 116 Street, approximately St. Nicholas Avenue to Lexington. 20% of the shootings in Manhattan North were within that area. We moved a lot of resources. The borough commander, Chief O'Reilly, moved a lot of resources. So since October, within that zone, which did account for 20% of the Manhattan North robberies, there was 1 shooting for the rest of the year. So again, relentless follow-up, data-driven, turning intelligence, looking at intelligence analytically, looking at it then operationally, and a lot of resources were put in that area. The other spike that we saw was in the 7-5 precinct in East New York community, Spring Creek, and also Cypress Hills. There was an increase driven by crew violence along with some narco-motivated shootings. Just want to discuss rape. We know rape has consistently been underreported and traditionally an underreported crime. But in recent years, we've seen increased reports of rape and sexual assault from prior years, from incidents 3 and 4 and 5 years in the past. Those numbers have gone up, and we have encouraged victims to come forward as we have overhauled our Special Victims Division and increased training around the trauma of past victimization and effectively and sensitively investigating it. So overall, rape victims did decrease this year, though we saw a uptick in domestic violence rapes. Just domestic violence overall, we did see a little of an uptick of domestic violence. Domestic violence murders, we did see a 19.
And we've been watching a press conference with Mayor Bill de Blasio and Police Commissioner Dermot Shea on the city's latest crime statistics, including the rise in anti-Semitic hate crimes. We will continue to cover this story on CBS in New York later today and on CBSNewYork.com. Right now, we are taking a quick break, and we'll be right back.